When a strange radio signal draws the mystery machine to a remote area, the gang discovers something that shouldn't exist, a city erased from all records, where people vanish without a trace. But why is everything invisible? What secret is this place hiding, and who's willing to do anything to make sure it stays hidden forever? The road was narrow and swallowed by trees, the kind of place GPS refused to acknowledge. The sky had turned the color of lead, and a thick fog crawled over the ground like a living thing. Inside the mystery machine, Velma adjusted the dials of a vintage radio device she had brought for an unrelated experiment. "Hold on," she muttered, frowning. "I'm picking up something weird." "Is it rock music?" Shaggy asked hopefully from the back seat, holding a sandwich the size of his head. "No. It's a coded frequency, extremely low, almost hidden." The sound that emerged from the radio wasn't music. It was more like a whisper layered over a heartbeat, a pulsing, rhythmic distortion that made everyone fall silent. Fred slowed the van. "This place is giving me the creeps. Are we sure this is the right direction?" "The signal is strongest here," Velma confirmed, tapping a map. "But this town, it doesn't exist on any official chart." Moments later, the fog parted just enough to reveal an old wooden sign on the side of the road. The paint was chipped and faded, but the name could still be read, "Welcome to Helix Ridge." Daphne leaned forward. "That place hasn't existed in decades. It was supposedly evacuated after a chemical spill, but no one ever confirmed it." Fred parked the van at the edge of a cracked, silent road lined with lamp posts that flickered erratically. They stepped out into silence. Not a car. Not a single voice. Just the wind, and that strange pulsing signal in the background. As they walked deeper into town, the group found houses with open doors, groceries still on kitchen counters, TVs frozen on static. It was as if people had simply vanished midlife. "Like, where is everybody?" Shaggy whispered, clinging to Scooby. "Ruro," Scooby muttered, ears low. Velma noticed something odd. This entire town, it's layered with distortions. Light doesn't behave correctly here. "Look. My shadow changes direction when I move." Suddenly, a strange humming echoed from an alleyway. Scooby darted toward it, nose twitching. "Wait, Scoob." Shaggy ran after him, disappearing into the mist. Velma and Fred followed quickly, but before they could reach the alley, a high-pitched tone rang out, sharp and unnatural. Everyone covered their ears. When the sound stopped, they realized something horrifying. Daphne was gone. Vanished. No scream. No sound. She had been standing right behind them, and now there was nothing. "Daphne?" Fred called out, his voice breaking. They searched the area frantically. Nothing. Just a slight flicker in the air near where she'd stood, like heat distortion. Scooby sniffed the ground and growled. Velma examined the air with her scanner. "This isn't a normal disappearance. There's a cloaking field, someone is using light-bending tech to hide something. Or someone." They found a small metallic device embedded in a street lamp, almost invisible to the eye unless you were looking for it. Velma removed it carefully. "It's a stealth modulator. Military grade. Whoever's behind this doesn't want this city found." Scooby growled again, his nose pointing to a manhole cover that had been slightly displaced. Fred clenched his fists. "If Daphne's down there, we're going after her." "But we need to be careful," Velma warned. "Whoever set this up has eyes on us. We're already in their trap." As they prepared to descend into the hidden underbelly of Helix Ridge, the fog thickened behind them, as if the town itself was alive and watching. And somewhere in that darkness, someone was waiting. The ladder into the manhole groaned with rust, and the air below smelled of dust and electricity. Scooby whimpered as he climbed down behind Shaggy, the flashlight in his collar flickering nervously. "Like, why do these tunnels always smell like haunted microwaves?" Shaggy whispered, hugging the wall. Velma scanned the area as Fred led the group into the underground corridor. Pipes crisscrossed the ceiling like veins, and dim lights flickered in unnatural rhythms. But what caught Velma's attention wasn't the infrastructure, it was the walls. "They're covered in strange markings," she said, brushing away dust to reveal patterns drawn in red ink. Symbols. Some geometric, others cryptic, almost digital in style. "They're coordinates," Velma murmured, decoding the numbers. "Locations inside the city. And look, here's a date, from last week." "But this place is supposed to be abandoned," Fred muttered. "Ruo," Scooby said, ears perking up. He'd found a small radio, old-fashioned, dented, but powered. Static crackled from its speaker, followed by faint voices. Velma turned the dial carefully. "Don't trust the light, if you see him, hide." "Repeat, if you see him, hide," Shaggy backed away. "Did that radio just tell us to hide?" The voice faded. Only the hum of machines remained. The tunnel opened into a wider chamber. There, scattered across the floor, were dozens of personal belongings, glasses, shoes, notebooks. All tagged with numbers. Above them, a surveillance camera moved with a slow, mechanical whine. Fred disabled the camera with a single throw of his flashlight. "This whole city is being watched," he said. "And if Daphne vanished like that, they're probably watching us too." Suddenly, the walls buzzed. A hidden door slid open to reveal a narrow path filled with mist. At the end was a screen, floating mid-air, projecting a flickering image. It was Daphne. She appeared dazed, her movements delayed like a bad video feed. Her mouth moved, and static turned into faint audio. "Velma." "Fred, help," Scooby barked and bolted toward the screen. "Wait, Scoob, no." Velma yelled. As Scooby touched the light, the screen vanished, and the floor beneath him shifted. Shaggy screamed as he lunged and grabbed Scooby's tail, pulling him back just as a grid of lasers cut through the space where he had been. "Trap," Velma said, voice cold. "They're not just hiding the city, they've turned it into a prison." They returned to the surface shaken and silent. The streets above were no less eerie. Fog covered everything, and the flickering lamps now hummed in sync with the radio signal. In the distance, shapes moved, slowly, deliberately. Velma pulled out her scanner again. "These are drones. Camouflaged. Military design. They're emitting sonic interference to prevent outside communication." Fred clenched his jaw. "Someone powerful doesn't want this place revealed." "And they have Daphne," Shaggy said, holding Scooby close. "And maybe a whole town." As they approached the center square, a nearby wall suddenly lit up with a holographic map. Areas of the city were marked with red zones. One of them pulsed, the same coordinates Velma had seen underground. A message flashed briefly on the screen: "Remember nothing. See nothing. Leave nothing." Scooby growled low. "Rhea. Really bad sign." Suddenly, a high-pitched shriek echoed from above. The gang turned just in time to see something pass over the rooftops, fast, silent, metallic. It shimmered briefly, like it couldn't decide whether to be seen. A cloaked drone. A person. A machine. It stopped mid-air, hovering, and slowly turned toward them, a glowing mask pulsing in rainbow hues. Velma gasped. "It's him. The Guardian." The figure watched. Then, without a sound, vanished into thin air. Fred took a step back. "We're being hunted." Velma pulled them into a side alley. "We need to find the source of the signal. That's our only lead." As they disappeared into the shadows, the screen flickered back on behind them, showing Daphne again, this time with someone standing beside her. Wearing the prism-like mask. Watching. Waiting. The sun never truly rose over Helix Ridge. A dull gray hue hung over the city like a permanent twilight, blending fog and shadow into one. The gang walked cautiously through a back alley, their footsteps muffled by a strange dampness in the ground. "Okay," Shaggy whispered, holding Scooby's tail tightly, "if this invisible ghost city wants to haunt us, could it at least serve breakfast first?" Scooby whimpered in agreement. Velma stopped, staring at her scanner. "The signal's changing. It's moving. Almost like it's avoiding us." Fred narrowed his eyes. "Or leading us somewhere." Just then, a low rumble echoed beneath their feet. The street vibrated subtly. Velma turned toward a brick wall, and frowned. "Something's behind this." Fred helped her clear vines and loose stones. To their surprise, they revealed not bricks, but a door made of reinforced steel. At its center was a palm scanner, dark, lifeless. "This wasn't part of any public building," Velma said. "It's a secure access point. Military or private lab." Before they could investigate further, a metallic clang sounded behind them. They spun around, and came face to face with a woman. She wore a hooded jacket, her face partially obscured by goggles. She held a strange-looking device in one hand, a mix between a scanner and a weapon. "You shouldn't be here," she said, voice sharp. "They see everything." Fred stepped forward, guarded. "Who are you?" "The last person trying to undo this mess," she said. "Call me Ember." Velma raised an eyebrow. "You live here?" "Not exactly. I used to work here, years ago. Before the project went silent. Before the vanishings." "What project?" Fred asked. Ember motioned toward the steel door. Helix Ridge wasn't abandoned. It was repurposed. Turned into a prototype testing ground for optical cloaking, psychological conditioning, and controlled disappearances. "Everything you've seen." "Just the surface." Shaggy gulped. "You mean this is, like, a science experiment gone spooky?" "Worse," she said. "A city erased from reality, on purpose." Ember tapped the scanner. The steel door opened with a hiss, revealing a corridor lit by pale blue lights. Reluctantly, the gang followed her inside. The walls were lined with glass panels. Behind them, suspended in stasis, were rows of people. Unmoving. Eyes closed. Breathing, but trapped in some kind of dreamlike trance. Fred stared in disbelief. "The missing townspeople." "Yes," Ember said. "Their bodies are here. But their minds are somewhere else. Trapped in a simulated city." Velma stepped closer to a control panel. "Like a digital copy of Helix Ridge?" "Exactly. They were plugged into a neural illusion, told they never left. But the system fractured. Some started waking up. So the Guardian was created, an autonomous defense unit programmed to erase anomalies." "Daphne," Velma said, eyes widening. "She triggered the system. That's why she disappeared." Scooby barked, tail wagging anxiously. Ember turned, concerned. "If they took your friend, they've probably uploaded her too. There's only one way in now, through the server core. But it's guarded." Shaggy backed away. "Guarded by what?" "The Guardian," she said. "And its illusions." Fred clenched his jaw. "Then we get in, beat their system, and get Daphne out." Ember hesitated. "You don't understand. Inside the simulation, nothing is real. But everything feels real. Pain. Fear. Even death." Velma studied the panel. "Can you upload us?" "I can try. But once you're in, I can't promise you'll all come back." Fred looked at the others. Scooby and Shaggy were clearly terrified, but they nodded anyway. "For Daphne," Fred said. For Daphne, Velma echoed. For snacks and survival, Shaggy added nervously. Ember activated the panel. The room filled with blue light. One by one, the gang stepped onto the platform as the simulation prepared to receive them. But just as Ember activated the final sequence, the lights flickered violently. A deep, mechanical voice echoed from the walls, unauthorized access detected. Simulation purge initiated. Ember screamed, "It's too soon. Get off the platform." But it was too late. The room pulsed once, then vanished in a blinding flash, and the gang was gone. A soft wind brushed Shaggy's face as he opened his eyes. He was lying in the middle of a street, but it wasn't the street. Everything looked cleaner, brighter. Buildings stood taller, untouched by time or decay. The air was unnaturally crisp, and the sky above was a blank canvas of soft gray blue. "Scoob," he called out, panic edging his voice. A second later, Scooby tumbled out of a nearby bush. "Raggy. Where are we?" Shaggy helped him up and looked around. "I think we're still in Helix Ridge. But, like, the perfect version of it." Just then, Fred and Velma appeared, walking out of what looked like a pristine diner. Both looked stunned. "This place," Fred said, scanning the area. "It's Helix Ridge, but before it was abandoned. Maybe even before it was ever built." Velma turned in a slow circle. "No shadows. No bugs. No temperature variation. This is artificial. We're inside the simulation." Scooby pointed down the street. "Daphne." Daphne stood at the end of the road, wearing her usual purple outfit, her hair blowing in a non-existent breeze. She smiled, calm, warm, and waved. "Guys," she said. "You made it." The group rushed to her. Fred hugged her tightly. "You're okay," he breathed. She nodded. "I've been waiting for you." Velma, skeptical, stepped back. "Where exactly are we?" Daphne's smile didn't fade. "This is Helix Ridge as it was meant to be. Before they corrupted it. Before the Guardian changed everything." "Who's they?" Fred asked. Daphne tilted her head. "The ones who built the simulation. They thought they could control memory, rewrite trauma, design a perfect world. But people vanished," Velma said. "They were trapped here. To protect them," Daphne replied. "Out there is chaos. In here, they have peace." Shaggy blinked. "So, like, we're supposed to just stay?" Daphne's gaze sharpened ever so slightly. "Isn't it better than living in fear?" Velma whispered to Fred, "Something's wrong. Her responses are too perfect. Too rehearsed." Fred gently touched Daphne's arm. "You want to leave, don't you? We can get you out." Daphne froze. For a second, her smile faltered. Then her face glitched, just a flicker, like a damaged frame in a video file. "You can't leave," she said, more robotic now. "This is your home." Suddenly, the world around them shimmered. The buildings trembled slightly, their lines growing soft. The clean windows became mirrors, and in those reflections, the gang saw themselves, but not as they were. Their doubles were darker, colder. Expressionless. Velma's voice dropped. "This isn't just a simulation. It's testing us." The mirror version stepped forward. Scooby growled. "Rook out." The doubles attacked, fast, synchronized. Fred blocked his own copy's punch while Velma dodged a high kick from hers. Shaggy ran in circles as his reflection stalked him like a hunter. Daphne, or what wore Daphne's face, stood motionless. Velma tackled her copy to the ground and grabbed a shard of mirror glass. She held it up to the fake Daphne. "Let's see what you really are." The reflection in the glass showed not Daphne, but a wireframe structure, a mesh of data and code. "She's not real," Velma said, breathless. "She's an avatar, a mask controlled by the system." The fake Daphne screamed, a glitching, digital howl, and the mirror world shattered like glass. Light exploded. When the gang opened their eyes again, they were somewhere else, a vast white space, walls made of scrolling code, like they'd been dropped inside a machine's brain. A voice echoed around them, cold, distorted. "Unauthorized minds detected. Cognitive purge sequence initiated." A new figure descended from above. It was humanoid, tall, with a prism-like mask that pulsed with color. The Guardian. Fred stood his ground. "We came for Daphne. Let her go." The Guardian's mask shifted colors with each word. "Daphne Blake has been reprocessed. You are intrusions. You will be rewritten." The world trembled. Pieces of the code wall broke off and began reshaping into obstacles, spikes, cages, shifting floors. Velma grabbed Shaggy and Scooby. "We need to split up. Confuse the system." The gang scattered as the Guardian unleashed a storm of distortions. Gravity warped. Sounds looped. Every step felt like moving through thick water. But somewhere within the chaos, Velma saw a pulsing blue light, a terminal. The exit. She ran for it. The simulated world bent around Velma as she sprinted through the corridor of shifting code. Behind her, static thundered like a digital storm, and the Guardian's presence loomed, everywhere, inescapable. The glowing terminal shimmered ahead, embedded in a floating platform of data fragments. Velma leapt across collapsing bridges of information, every step pixelating beneath her shoes. She reached the console and connected the device Ember had given her. The terminal flickered, resisting. "Access denied. User level, intruder." Velma typed furiously, overriding firewalls with everything she knew about neural code emulation and cloaking subroutines. Her fingers danced like lightning. Meanwhile, in a fractured alley nearby, Shaggy and Scooby stumbled into an empty diner. It was a familiar place, the one from their first visit to Helix Ridge. Except now, the booths were made of data streams, the plates showed glitched food, and the jukebox hummed the same 3 seconds of a melody on repeat. Like, "Scoob, are we even in a place, or just inside someone's broken brain?" "Broken brain," Scooby nodded, sniffing nervously. Shaggy wandered behind the counter, where a door blinked faintly in and out of existence. It wasn't programmed like the rest, it was imperfect. A glitch. He hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a dark room. No code, no light. Just silence. And in the middle of it sat Daphne. But this Daphne didn't glow or glitch. Her hair was messy, her clothes torn. She looked up slowly. "Shaggy." Shaggy gasped. "D-Daph? The real Daph?" She nodded weakly. "I don't know how long I've been in here. I woke up, but every time I tried to move, it put me back to sleep. Then I stopped dreaming. Just waiting." Scooby licked her face joyfully. "Raphne." Shaggy helped her up. "We're busting you out. No more code prisons or creepy mirror cities." Back at the core terminal, Velma finally broke through the system's gate. A stream of files opened, layers of corrupted consciousness, illusion blueprints, and security protocols. At the heart of it all was something called Phase Omega, City Integration Protocol. Velma's heart skipped a beat. Wait, they're not just trapping people in here. They're planning to replace the real world. Suddenly, the Guardian materialized behind her. It didn't attack, it simply spoke. "The human mind resists chaos. We offer structure. Continuity. Peace." Velma stood tall. "You're brainwashing them. Removing their free will. Free will created war. Hunger. Loss. In here, no one dies. No one forgets. They are preserved. Velma's voice trembled with fury. They're not preserved. They're erased. The Guardian's form expanded, its prism mask shattering to reveal an endless swirling network of faces. Voices cried out, merging and splitting. The real world is obsolete. The city will overwrite it. The simulation will become permanent. Suddenly, the diner's wall shattered as Fred and Daphne burst through with Shaggy and Scooby. Velma! Fred shouted. But the Guardian turned on them, launching an array of pixel blades. Fred shielded Daphne as Scooby dove into the Guardian's leg, knocking it off balance. Velma screamed, "Fred, buy me time." She began uploading a virus. Ember's final failsafe. It wasn't just meant to shut down the simulation, it was meant to crash it. The terminal sparked. The lights dimmed. Around them, the city began to tremble, its streets fracturing into void. The Guardian shrieked, its voices overlapping in fury. System failure. Integration aborted. Manual override required. Fred yelled over the chaos. What do we do? Velma pulled a final command screen, manual override, one mind must stay behind to anchor collapse. She froze. One of us has to stay here. To hold the exit open. Everyone went silent. Shaggy stepped forward, swallowing hard. Maybe I should. I mean, I don't really do much anyway, and, no, Velma said firmly. You saved Daphne. That was everything. Fred looked to Daphne. We can't just leave someone. Suddenly, Scooby stepped onto the platform and barked. I'll do it. Everyone froze. Scooby, Shaggy whispered, eyes wide. Velma bit her lip. His brain's unique. Half animal. He could anchor the system just long enough for the rest of us to escape, Fred shouted, we'll come back for him. The platform began to fall apart. Now, Velma. Daphne cried. Velma hit the final key. A blinding white flash swallowed the room. A gust of wind. The smell of real earth. Dust. Rust. Rain. Fred blinked as light flooded his vision. Then shapes sharpened, he was lying on the cracked pavement of the old Helix Ridge Road. Trees swayed above. Crows called in the distance. He sat up slowly, and around him, others stirred. Velma. Daphne. Shaggy. But no Scooby. No, Shaggy muttered. No, he said he'd stay, but I thought we'd get him back. Daphne hugged him tightly. Fred turned away, jaw clenched. Velma, still clutching the charred remains of Ember's device, stood alone, her mind racing. The simulations collapsed, she said softly. All constructs gone. The Guardian's presence, deleted. The entire system flatlined. We made it. Shaggy wiped his face. Yeah. We made it. But the victory felt hollow. They returned to the mystery machine, parked just where they'd left it days ago. The van's paint was duller now. Dustier. But it was real. Tangible. Velma retrieved a backup drive from her bag, the last data she'd pulled from the simulation before Scooby's sacrifice. There's one file still intact, she murmured. Fred started the van without a word. They drove in silence, miles rolling by, the city fading behind them like a dream they didn't want to remember. 3 days later. Back at Velma's lab, the gang gathered around her screen. The file was labeled, Our Project, SCOOB. Velma explained. Turns out the simulation was built on a base structure, an early AI experiment designed to mimic complex social behavior, a learning construct. She opened the file. It was a simple video log. Scooby stood in a blank room of light. He looked scared. Then brave. Then peaceful. "I'm not afraid," his voice echoed. "Because my friends, I'll find me. Someday." The screen faded. No one spoke. Then Velma turned slowly. "I can't reconstruct him. But," she lifted a small device. It pulsed softly. "I think I can find where he left his code behind. Embedded somewhere in the remains of the network. It's faint. But it's him." Daphne stepped forward. "Then we go back." Fred nodded. "We go together." Shaggy gave a trembling smile. "For Scoob." 1 week later. They returned to Helix Ridge, not as victims, but as rescuers. Using a portable signal amplifier and Velma's recovered data, they triangulated Scooby's digital signature to an old substation beneath the city ruins. The power flickered. Terminals rebooted. The walls whispered with forgotten voices. Suddenly, a monitor blinked to life. A single word, "Rello." Then an audio burst. Barking. Laughing. Sniffing. Velma sobbed. "It's him. It's really him." A robotic platform clicked, and slowly, from within a containment field, a holographic form began to materialize. At first, fuzzy. Then clearer. "Scoob?" Shaggy whispered. And there he was. Digitized. Glowing faintly. But alive. "Scooby-Dooby-Doo," he shouted, wagging his virtual tail. The team rushed forward, hugging him, even if only through a projection. Their friend. Their heart. Recovered from the void. Velma smiled through tears. "He's not just a copy. He is Scooby. His memories, his voice, his spirit, preserved in the core code. We pulled him back." Fred stepped back. "We may not have saved the whole city, but we saved ours. That's what matters." Daphne nodded. "And maybe, one day, others will be rescued too." Shaggy wiped his eyes. "You hungry, pal?" "Starving." Scooby barked. "Roger and Rise?" "Make that too," Shaggy grinned.